how those plans work. A pension plan pays you and your spouse, if you chose to have that spouse on the plan with you, an income benefit for the rest of your life. However, when the last one of you passes away in a pension plan, the money does not go to your beneficiaries. It goes back into the plan to pay the people that are still surviving. Sort of like Social Security. You pay into it your whole life, it pays you until you die, and then whatever you didn't spend out of that account goes back into the system to pay those who are still on the plan. So you might want to, at some point, if you're entering retirement and you do have a pension plan, you might want to think about rolling that over into an IRA. Because at that point, you control the assets, you control the investments. Pension plans generally do not give you an income in retirement when you retire. It is what it is for the rest of your life. It may not keep up with inflation. So rolling it over into an IRA where you direct and control that plan yourself might be a better option, because then when you pass away, your spouse passes away, whatever is left in that account goes to your beneficiaries. So it might be a better option. You might get a slightly smaller payout than the pension plan, because we quite frankly can't compete with what they pay you, because they know they're going to get it all back in the end anyway. So that's all I want to say about pension plans. 401k plans, 403b plans, and TSA plan contributions are taxed differently when you put the money in. Income is put in before you pay the tax on it. It accumulates without tax during the time that's in the plan, the 401k, 403b, TSA, so on and so forth. At distribution, when your tax is paid, it is paid at ordinary rates. So you put the money in, it accumulates for 20, 30 years in the plan tax-free, but when then you start taking distributions, all that income is taxed at ordinary rates. If your employer offers a 401k plan or a 403b plan and it has a matching contribution, you should definitely contribute to that plan at least up to the matching amount. That's free money. So a lot of plans offer 3 to 5% matching contributions up to the first $5,000 or $6,000 of what you put in. You at least want to get participating at the matched level of that plan to get that free money. Roth contributions in an employer plan, I don't know if you're familiar with Roth contributions, but Roth contributions in an employer plan go in after you pay the tax on the income. So you get your paycheck, you pay the tax on it, and then you say to the company, put this amount in my Roth IRA. Those contributions again go into the plan after you pay tax on the earnings, but they accumulate tax deferred, and the distributions are tax free. That is a huge, huge advantage if you're younger, if you're in your 40s or 50s, or even your 60s. You really, really should be looking at Roth IRAs to fund part of your retirement. Even though you pay tax on the earnings when you get it, you will not pay taxes on the distributions when they come out. Roth IRAs must be held in the plan for 5 years minimum. You can take distributions from your Roth IRA before age 59 and a half, but you can only take out what you put in. You cannot take out the earnings. If you take out the earnings before 59 and a half, the IRS will impose a 10% tax penalty. So, this is an excellent opportunity for you if you're younger, middle-aged, to participate in that. For example, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, you may want to consider a Roth conversion. A Roth conversion simply says, I'm going to take money out of my qualified plan, if a 403b allows it, if a 401k allows it, early distribution, or if you have an existing IRA, you can take money out of those accounts and convert those to a Roth IRA, even while you're working. What that does is you will pay tax on the distribution that you take from the qualified plan when you convert to the Roth. But then you position those assets in the Roth for the next 10, 15, 20 years, and then those distributions have grown, and at retirement, you lay those down beside what you're getting from the 401k, and you literally have some effect of controlling the IRS, even in retirement when you get there. Under current IRS rules, you must start your qualified plan distributions at age 73. So if you're 73 or going to be close to that or over that, you should be taking RMDs. If you're not, the penalty is 25% of what you should have taken, plus tax on those distributions once the IRS finds out you didn't take it. So you want to be sure those are taken.
That applies to a Roth also?
It does not apply to Roth IRAs. Roth IRAs are excluded from that. So in a Roth IRA, you do not have to take RMDs at 73. Beginning in 2033, you can defer those contributions from your qualified plan to age 75. So let's just take a little look at this. Hypothetical example. You and your spouse have accumulated $500,000 in 401ks and 403b plans, and you're 55 years old. Using the rule of 72, your account doubles every 6 years. At age 61, the account is $1 million. At age 67, it's $2 million. And at age 73, it's $3 million. Those sound like big, big numbers. But we're seeing a lot of rollovers these days in those numbers. Now you must start taking your RMDs. This combined with other taxable income such as a pension, Social Security, or taxable dividends from accounts may force you into a higher tax bracket at 73 than you were while you were working. Because if you have to take a 4% distribution rate or 5% distribution rate at 73 on $3 million, that's 120 grand a year that is forced out to you out of your 403b or 401k, plus Social Security, plus any investment assets that you have taxable income on. So it could force you from, say, a 22% tax bracket while you're working into a higher tax bracket when you're retired. And the older you get, because the older we get, the harder it becomes to spend all this money. The account grows, and the tax burden grows and grows and grows, and you could see yourself in your 80s in a 30-plus tax bracket for the rest of your life. So funding this Roth IRA is extremely important that you at least look at it, consider it, think about it going forward. Another advantage to Roth IRAs, in a regular IRA, if you and your spouse pass away, those benefits go to your beneficiary, whatever's left in the account. Then your children, whoever you leave it to, they have to decide as to how they're going to take the money. They will have to pay tax on that IRA because it came from a traditional IRA or 401k. And they will then have options. They can take it all out at once. They can take it out over a 5 or 10 year period, but the maximum that they can defer taking money out of that account is 10 years under current IRS rules. So you leave them 100 grand that you haven't spent in your IRA or 401k, they have to take that out over the next 10 years. In a Roth IRA, the same scenario. There are no taxes payable to whoever inherits the account. So your children inherit that account tax-free. Now, there are specific IRS rules as to how long they can leave it in there, but at least they don't pay any tax on it when they receive it or when they distribute the funds. So Roth IRAs, they're fairly new. They've only been around 10, 15 years. But people are beginning to catch on to this and taking advantage of Roth IRAs.
Question on 401k that gets inherited.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you say they pay taxes, but is it taxes again when they withdraw it? Or is it taxes, all taxes right up front?
No,
Inherited.
if you inherit a 401K as a surviving spouse, you don't have to pay taxes until you withdraw the funds. And when you inherit a 401K as a spouse or an IRA, the spouse inherits it as if it were all there.
Yes.
So let's say your spouse is 10 years younger than you are, and they pass away, you're 73, you've started your RMDs, your spouse inherits the IRA. They're 63. They don't have to start RMDs until they're 73, because the IRS looks at it as though they always own the account. And then, of course, when they take distributions out of the IRA, they have to start paying tax on them.
Can it be, what if it's not your spouse? What if it goes to your children or in your will?
If it goes to your children, then the 10-year rule applies, where they have to have the money out of the account within 10 years.
But it's still, they don't pay taxes unless they do a withdrawal.
They do not pay taxes unless they do a withdrawal.
Okay.
But we
Yes.
would encourage them to
Oh,
start
yes.
withdrawing in the first year, because again, let's look at the rule of 72. It doubles in 10 years. Now, whatever they've inherited is double. They're still working, they're in a higher tax bracket, and now they have to take it all out at once.
Right.
So,
And there's a formula too with a calculator that you can do it by your age and all that kind of stuff, so
Yes.
that 10%.
yes, there are, yeah.
10-year period, so, yeah.
Mhm.
And then, can the tax be taken, that's due, be taken out of the 401K itself?
Well, when we set them up, we have the taxes pre-withheld from every distribution. We just tell the company, take the taxes out and send us a net distribution
Right,
after tax.
right.
Mhm.
What I mean is the tax paid doesn't have to be out of their own pocket. Can't come from the 401K, that's not.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
technically it's out of their own pocket because they gotta pay it.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm. Okay, the rule of 72. Anybody know what that is?
Take,
got one?
Take your interest rate at which you're investing, divide it into 72. That is the number of years that it doubles.
Yes. It's the rate of return that you're earning divided into 72, tells you how many years to double the account value. So, for example, $12,000 rate of return divided into 72 says that every 6 years your account value would double. So 10 grand at 12% and divided into 72 means that every 10 years that 10 grand will turn into 20 and then 40 and then so on and so forth. I want to talk about the magic of compound interest again, because once again, time is it's either your best friend or your worst enemy. The sooner you start, the better chances you are of success. A little grows to be a lot over time. Let's just put an example out here. You start with $1,000. You invest $100 every month for 30 years. You're very consistent. The account grows at 12% compound interest, and we're going to talk about how to get that 12% in a minute here. That account, $1,000 invested in $100 a month for 30 years, grows to $319,559. That's $1,000 plus $100 a month. You put in $37,000. It is important that you start early, that you are very, very consistent with your deposits, and that you don't touch the money. There's a tremendous temptation for some people when they see that account growing to draw that money out. The IRS is going to penalize you 10% for taking an early withdrawal if it's in a retirement plan. Leave it alone, let it grow. That is your future. Most people in this room are not really sophisticated to go out and do it on their own. That's why there are people like me around to help you with that process. Most people in this room are probably best suited for mutual funds. What is a mutual fund? We're going to talk about those for a few minutes today. Other investment options can be looked at. If you schedule an appointment with us, we can talk about other investment options. But mutual funds, basically, for this group of people, are your best option. One mistake that many older clients make is by putting a major of their investable assets into CDs. I'm not a critic of CDs. I think everybody should have them. We should have savings accounts. We should have all that. We talked about that last week. However, it can be a critical mistake when you retire. If you're non-qualified money, this is money that's not IRA 401k money. If your non-qualified money is in a CD and you're earning 4% on that CD, inflation is 5 or 6%, and you're in a 12 or 22% tax bracket, you're losing 1 to 2% of the value of that money to inflation. You're losing another 12 to 22% of that money to taxation. When your assets grow at a rate that is lower than the combination of taxes and inflation combined, you're losing purchasing power. You don't realize it because you think you're getting the CD rate and it's safe. But in our business, we call this going broke safely. Just think about it. You have 4% CD. It's reduced by 1 to 2% for inflation. So there goes part of that rate of return. And your taxes are 12 to 22%. So there goes another part of that. Inflation's at 6%. What do you have left? If you have 2% left on that CD and inflation is 6%, you're not going to make it in retirement. You're just not going to make it. You're going to run out of money before you run out of time. An alternative to this may be a product that offers you the opportunity to earn S&P 500 index returns with a downside cap. This is a product that gives you the ability to be in the market, but with protection on the downside. These products offer you a zero downside risk, so that if the market does not perform up to your standards, you don't lose anything. If the market loses money, you don't lose anything. But you could get up to 11.5%, 12% returns on this account if you're willing to accept some risk. So let's just say,
Sorry, Jack, we died a little bit. Go ahead, keep going.
hello, are you there? Can you all hear me without this thing?
Yeah.
All right, we'll carry on. The video might not be able to hear me, but that's okay. So let's say that I forgot where I was. I don't remember.
S&P mutual fund with downside cap.
Oh, yes. So there's a product that gives you S&P 500 index possible returns with a downside cap. If you set your risk level at 0 and the S&P loses money, you don't lose a dime that year. If the S&P 500 index gains that year, you will get, measured against the S&P 500 index, a rate of return of 3 or 4% on that. Well, that's not bad. If you set your risk, for example, at 5%, let's say you had $100,000, you threw it in there. Now you risk losing $5,000, but you could gain up to $8,500. So you set the level of risk you're willing to assume in the market, and then your rate of return is measured against the S&P 500 index for that year. These products are very, very attractive to retirees because it lets you choose the risk that you want to have in that account over the year at a time. And the beautiful thing about these products is that they let you reset your risk level annually. So what is a mutual fund? A mutual fund is it's a portfolio, if you could get a picture of a portfolio of stocks. And they could be in technology, finance, industry, healthcare, etc. And that portfolio of stocks is professionally managed. There's a team of managers that manages those funds. There are approximately 10,000 of those to choose from out there. Best performing funds. The thing that you want to be sure to look at first is what is the manager tenure of the fund? How long has the guy been there doing this? And what is the track record? And you may have been heard of lately ETFs, exchange traded funds. Mutual funds and exchange traded funds are basically the same thing, except how they are traded. Mutual funds will trade at the close of business at the market every day. So if you place a sell order at 10 o'clock in the morning, that trade does not take place until 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the market closes. Exchange traded funds trade and buy and sell when you place a trade. So if you place a trade at 10 o'clock in the morning, the trade is executed right then. So that's the difference, basic difference between ETFs and mutual funds. Look at an example. The market's going down. You have an ETF and you panic and you sell at 10 in the morning. Only to find, and then you get busy with your day, you don't have time to look at the market again. Only to find out that at the end of the day, the market corrected and gained more than you would have lost. To buy that ETF back, you gotta buy it at a higher price. That doesn't make any sense. So what you want to do is you definitely want to not to try to change market yields. That takes skill. It takes a lot of skill. And there are a lot of people that I know sit at their computers all day trading. My question is, what are they doing? Does their employer know? What are they doing sitting at the computer when they're supposed to be sitting there working? But here are just some examples. I talked about higher rates of return. So I have a little quiz for you. Got your thinking caps on, students? If you had $1,000, and that's a lot of money, invested in a mutual fund called the Investment Company of America in 1934. $1,000 in 1934 was a lot of money. You never added to it. You never took any money out. What would that account be? What would that account value be as of 12/31/2024? Talk about it at your table for a couple of minutes here, and somebody come up with an answer. That's 90 years, $1,000 invested. You never touched it. You never added to it. You never took money out. Do not open that book.
She already showed me. I know the answer.
Well, don't give it.
Okay, I won't.
Jack, what's it invested in?
It was in the book.
It's invested in mutual funds.
Just a random selection?
It's invested in the Investment Company of America. It's a specific mutual fund, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Somebody tell me, what do you think? Just raise your hand, tell me what you think it'd be worth.
Depending on which
Yes.
company.
I think it's 2.7 million.
2.7 million over here.
And
Anybody else? Not Tim? Anybody else?
Probably 10 million.
10 million? Anybody else? One more.
We got it right here.
5.3 million.
5.3 million. Very, very good. 41,266,065. $1,000 invested, 90 years, dividends reinvested, and you didn't touch it. Wow. Let's talk about some investments that, go ahead and open that book now. This is the history of this fund. You'll have to share the books because we only have one for each table. This is the history of this fund. And if you look at that blue box under column A at the very top, you'll see that this fund averaged 12.4% per year since 1934. Now let's talk about some events that affected the market during this 90-year period. How many of you in this room remember 1962? What happened in 1962?
Cuban Missile Crisis.
The Cuban Missile Crisis. Who said that? We're the only ones that old enough to even know.
At least you guys knew about it, but they forgot about
That's the year that I graduated from high school. In 1963, President Kennedy was assassinated. In 1962 was the Cuban Missile Crisis. If you look at that line at the bottom, you'll see that the S&P, or that this portfolio dropped 13.1% that year. What did it do in 1963, the market?
Went up 23,
It went up 23.
22.9.
More recently, in 9/11, 2001, what happened?
Down 4.6.
Yeah, but what drove it down?
Well, the towers came down.
Yes, the World Trade Center bombing. It went down 4.4%. And then 2002, we had the corporate accounting scandal. Anybody remember the name Enron? We all do. And the market went down another 14.3%. So you had an 18.7% drop for those last 2 years. What happened in 2003?
Went up 26.
Went up 26.5%. What happened in 2008? Now this is more recent memory for some of you. In 2008 we had the recession. Market dropped 34.6%. In 2009 it recovered 27.5%. And then in 2022, more recent, global banks raised interest rate to fight inflation. Market drops, this fund dropped 15.3%. In 23, we were up 28.8%. In 24, we were up 25.2%. Lessons learned. Investing is not a short-term play. It's a long-term gain. And those people who buy and stay and don't panic win. Those people that don't, I have so many clients GM clients that during some of these down markets would call me and say, yeah, I just moved my SSPP or my PSP. I moved it all to cash today because the market took a 600-point dive. Well, congratulations, you just lost everything. Because you don't lose a penny in the market until you sell. It's all unreal money. That's why they call it a realized capital gain. You don't lose it, you don't get it until you take it. So those people that sold, waited a couple days, bought back in, and just look at the history here. Many of them bought back at a higher rate than they sold. So please, when you put your money away, be focused on the long term. So as long as we're talking about the Investment Company of America, I want to tell you a little bit about the fund. I'm not trying to sell you this fund, folks. I'm using it as an example. I have 3 examples for you here. The Investment Company of America was funded in 1934 by the American Fund Group of Mutual Funds. It is in the moderate growth sector, moderate growth in income, which means it's not too risky, it's not too safe. Its 10-year history is 13.4%. You know, you say, well, where do I find these yields? They're pretty easy to find once you do the research. In the 2024, in the year 2024, this fund owns shares of 186 different corporations in America. So broad diversification is the absolute key. These funds are very, very diversified. 75 of those funds, corporations were the largest corporations in America. There's another fund, Washington Mutual Investors Fund. Again, it's moderate growth in income, but more conservative than Investment Company of America. Its 10-year track record is 12.48%. Since inception back in 1952, this fund has averaged 11.88%. And then there's the Growth Fund of America. It founded in 1973. It has a 10-year return of 14.47. This is in the growth sector. So the reason I'm telling you this is that these funds are for different people at different places in their lives. If you're in your 40s or 50s or even 60s, then you're going to want moderate growth in income. You're becoming a little more pulled back with your aggressiveness. If you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, or even your early 50s, you're going to want to look at a growth sector. And this fund, since inception, since 1973, is averaged 13.7%. So those yields are out there. You have to invest, continue to invest, and be patient because things don't happen overnight. And again, the magic of compounding will work for you if you let it. For an individually owned joint account, dividends and capital gains in these individual accounts, you pay the taxes annually on those dividends and capital gains. You will get a 1099 at the end of the year from the investment company. Even if those funds are reinvested, you say, don't send me the money, put it back in my account, just let it build me more shares. You will still pay dividends and capital gains taxes on those shares. Ordinary incomes are paid at whatever your ordinary income rate is. Capital gains get a better tax treatment. Depending on your income, you may not pay any capital gains tax. And I think the maximum is 20% tax on capital gains this year. Your risk exposure really depends on your age. Young investors should have a risk score of 75 to 80% on their portfolio. Older or near retired investors should have a risk of 45 to 55%. And excuse me, if you come into our office for an appointment, we have a program that looks at your 401k, it looks at your individual investment, looks at all your investment portfolio, and it analyzes every holding that you have in that portfolio, and it assesses a risk score to that particular investment. A score of 80, for example, means that your portfolio, your overall score of 80, it means your portfolio is pretty high risk. And depending on your age, you may not want to be that high. Some people are what we call risk averse. So this program that we use measures your risk from 1 to 100. 1 being mattress, money under your mattress. Somebody in this room asked me after the first seminar if they were going to have to take their money out of their mattress. That guy over there. But a risk score of 100 means you own cryptocurrency in Russia. So what this program is, it's very, very helpful because it lets you know where you are in your portfolio. And then it allows you, once you see that score, to make adjustments accordingly in your portfolio. So it's very, very helpful, especially the closer you get to retirement. But it's helpful for young people too, because a lot of our young people are too conservatively invested. These investment accounts can be opened basically for $250 deposit, which is not a lot of money these days. And then when you add money, you can add money as little as $50 a month. So we're talking about, young people here who have a job, may still be living at home, or even college students that have part-time jobs. we're finding them opening these accounts. So what kind of an account should they open? Well, if you're 25 years old and working and have a job, you should get your emergency fund and all that set up, a Roth IRA. Now you've got all that money accumulating for all those years, and when you get retired, you could have a tax-free income. Think about that. You're retired now and all your income is tax-free. Of course, if your employer offers a 401k or 403b plan, you definitely want to participate in that, as I said, up to the 3% or 4% or 5%, whatever that match is. Get that much money in there at least, so you get that free money. So again, and I'm not, hear me when I say this. I'm not putting all this out there and keep referring to us as helping you through this so that we can make money off of you. If you come into our office and we sit down with you and we look at your plan and we look through everything, we say, this is great, you walk away. There is no charge or anything for any appointment ever at our office. We're here to help you maneuver this really, really interesting phase of your life that you're in financially. We want you to be financially successful. So we're not doing this just to get you to convince we can make a lot of money off you. If you become our client, yeah, we're going to make some money off of you. But we are here to help you navigate this process, and it can be tricky. So if you come in and we only encourage you to keep going, that's good enough for us. We're happy with that. We're doing just fine. There's a three-pronged approach for income at retirement, combining taxable money market accounts, savings accounts, and CDs, tax-free Roth income, mutual fund income that has already been taxed. For example, you build up this what I'll call non-qualified account. It's not an IRA, it's not a Roth. You build up this mutual fund portfolio, and let's just say it's got, I don't know, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 in it over the years. And in retirement, you decide to draw some funds out. How's that taxed? Well, it's interesting. All the money that you put in, plus all the dividends and capital gains that you have added to that account by reinvesting over the time period that you've had it, those get added to what we call cost basis. So you've got this account with 50 grand in it. You've reinvested your dividends and capital gains over all the years. You put $25,000 of your own money in it. And now your dividends and capital gains have grown that account to $50,000. What is your cost basis? Your cost basis could be $45,000 because all the dividends and capital gains over the years have been added to that. You've already paid tax on those. Remember I said you get a 1099 dividend at the end of every year on your taxable account. You cash that account out, let's say you want to buy a new boat, it's 50 grand. Your taxable portion of that is only $5,000. So that can be another avenue to getting your lower cost retirement income by spending money that you've already paid tax on in these kinds of accounts. I'm going to flip here a little bit, and I don't want to get too far into Bob's thing when he comes and talks to you about this, but 529 plans are an important feature that you might want to consider for your children coming up for college funding. 529 plans that are owned by a parent are counted on the FAFSA. How many of you have done FAFSAs or are in the process of it? If you have a 529 plan that is owned by you or your child, that 529 plan is counted toward their asset on the FAFSA. Accounts owned by grandparents or other people do not. So if you're going to set up a 529 plan, you might want to set that up under somebody other than yourself or your child, because then that money is not counted on the FAFSA. If you withhold sending money to that student for 2 years under the 529 plan, there is a 2-year look back. So let's say that now your student has been a freshman and a sophomore in college, now they're entering their junior year. Now start taking money out of the 529 plan to pay their tuition or books or whatever it is. There's a 2-year look back, and they will never see that you had the FAFSA. It's legal, you can do it, if the FAFSA is not in the name of the parent or the student. So that's a little education tip there that you younger people who are thinking about 529 plans want to apply. There's another 529 thing that people are just finding out about. It's a 529 conversion. If you have unused 529 plan money in your plan and you graduated from college and it's just sitting there, you don't know what to do with it, don't want to take it out because you pay tax on it, and so on and so forth. If that money's been in that plan for 15 years, and the funds have been in there at least 5 years, you can convert up to $35,000 of that 529 plan into a Roth IRA. Now think about that. You have a young student just out of college, or maybe in their 30s, and you still got this 529 money sitting around, you didn't know what to do with it. You can systematically convert the allowable limit into a Roth IRA every year until you've exhausted $35,000 of that 529 plan. It could be a great way to get your kids started funding for their retirement. This year, the Roth contribution limit is $7,500. And of course, that is wage-based. If you're making too much money, you can't put too much more in. Also, more Roth IRA possibilities. You may be able to convert some of your 401k or 403b or IRA assets into a Roth while you're working or retired to help lower your taxable income later in life. There's no limit on to how much that money you can move every year into a Roth IRA. Let's say you've got an IRA that's got, I don't know, $150,000 in it, and but you also have a 401k plan. And let's just say that you're on a 22% tax bracket. Your income's $125,000 a year combined with you and your spouse. The 22% tax bracket for 2026 goes from $100,000 to $211,400. You could convert up to $86,400 of that IRA into your Roth IRA this year and stay in a 22% tax bracket. So again, you can begin moving those assets from the IRA to the Roth IRA systematically, keeping yourself in the same tax bracket that you're in right now. Pay the taxes now. It hurts a little bit now because you have to pay the taxes when you convert. But then later on, you get that tax-free income from that Roth. It can save you tens of thousands of dollars. We've run illustrations where we've saved clients $300,000 or $400,000 in federal income taxes in the later years of their life by using these Roth conversions. It's a huge, huge benefit that many, many people are overlooking. So you definitely want to look at that. And of course, before you do any of the things that I'm talking about tonight, you want to talk to your tax professional to see if it's a right move for you, a good strategy for you. We also, with your permission, would talk to your tax advisor to coordinate these things to make sure that we don't hurt you by putting you in a higher tax bracket. Some 401k and 403b plans have Roth conversion options, have Roth IRA options right inside the plan. So now you have the opportunity to stay inside the plan that you're in, moving some of your 401k money into a Roth systematically every year. You may want to look at that option. If you are RMDs every year, there is a 25% penalty enforced by the IRS. Now that was recently changed, it used to be 50%. So you reach age 73, you forget to take your RMD this year, and next year you wake up on January First, you say, oh my goodness, I didn't take my RMD. Yeah, sorry. The IRS is not too forgiving, but somewhat forgiving. If you forgot and correct the mistake within 2 years, the penalty could be reduced to 10%. In some cases, they'll forgive it altogether, but you know, who we dealing with here? They want their money. And then we get to the no tax on Social Security rule. Remember that was a campaign promise? Well, it didn't really happen. What did happen was, to replace that, is that this year you're getting a $10,000 tax credit, $12,000 for you and your spouse on your income tax. That will give you some kind of a tax credit. But it's $12,000 for a married couple filing joint. But it is not Social Security tax
Is that
free.
a deduction or a credit?
It's a credit. It's not it's a deduction.
It's a deduction.
Yeah. Wow, I went through that really fast. I guess we'll open the floor to questions if you have any. Yes?
I'm going to encourage your clients to give away money to 501c3s as part of the required minimum distribution factor.
We absolutely do. That's a very good question. I'm glad you brought that up.
What was the question?
If you're 73, if you're taking RMDs, okay, you have the ability to step inside your IRA or your, I don't know if it applies to 401ks, but you have the ability to step inside your IRA, make a tax-free contribution to a 501c3 a 501c3 corporation, a nonprofit. For example, Grand Lakes Baptist Church. If I wanted to this year out of my IRA, I could say to the company that holds my IRA, send that check directly to Grand Lakes Baptist Church. And let's just say I wanted to donate $5,000 for my tithe or for a building plan or something. That company sends a check directly to Grand Lakes Baptist Church in my name. I get credit for the contribution. I do not pay any tax on that distribution from my IRA. And of course, Grand Lakes Baptist Church doesn't pay any tax on receiving it. So it is a way to give to 501c3 charitable contribution programs without paying tax on IRA distributions. I'm so glad you brought that up. That is a great way to support our churches and our 501c3s like the one right back here with tax-free money.
And you're saying that contributes to your RMD?
Yes, it does count towards your RMD.
Okay.
It does count towards your RMD, yeah. And we have a lot of clients that do that. Mhm. Somebody else have another question? Yes?
You stated that the difference between mutual funds and ETFs was that the ETFs can be traded during the day. But I thought they also typically had lower fees compared to
Well, they may, yeah, they do typically. This is kind of I guess we could debate this, but EFTs have lower fees, but in a mutual fund account, they have breakpoints. So the mutual funds that I'm talking about here, if you had $25,000 to invest, for example, the highest that you would pay is 5.75% if you put $1,000 in. And what's that, 15 bucks, okay? So the thing with a mutual fund is that once you put it in to the mutual fund, if you stay within that family of funds, you can move from fund to fund to fund to fund, and there are no additional costs. So you may pay, if you put in $25,000, I think you pay 4.5% one time. But if you're in that fund for 25 or 30 years, 4.5% to pay one time is a pretty low cost. Where in a ETF, exchange traded fund, you may end up paying higher costs over the long term. There are also no-load mutual funds. Those you kind of have to be careful of, and the SEC and FINRA has been looking at those. They're no-load, but they are higher internal costs, and they have what's called a contingent deferred sales cost. If you leave the fund early, you have to pay a cost to leave the fund. We call that compounding the felony. The fund isn't performing well, now you have to leave, and now you're gonna charge me, thanks a lot. But generally, we find that if someone's gonna pay 3.5%, 4.5%, a one-time fee to jump into a fund, and they're gonna have that fund for 25, 30 years, that's a pretty low cost to invest over time. And you never pay it again. What you do pay, if you move from fund to fund to fund inside the fund, inside this family funds, is you pay dividends or capital gains on the fund if it's a non-qualified account, because you're moving the money. In an IRA, there are no dividends and capital gains. So you can move around any number of funds as often as you want. It doesn't cost you any more. Good question. Someone else? Yes?
Do you encourage your clients to give the kids, set them up with a Roth IRA when they're working and paying tax on their money when they're working in high school? And you can contribute to a Roth IRA up to the amount that they paid, up to the amount that they earn. And if they take that money out before age 59 and a half, they'll get wallets. But if they wait, it'll grow into this $1 million project they're talking about.
We strongly encourage parents to open a Roth IRA for their kids and then have their kids fund it. Here's the advantage, Bear. Are you still living at home?
No.
Okay. For those who still live at home and have a job, you could fully fund your IRA and live off your parents for, I don't know, 20, 30 years.
This ends the session.
This is the session where the speaker gets shot. No, we do strongly encourage parents to open an IRA. We had our clients come in here a few months ago, opened IRAs for their daughters, twin daughters, and their daughters are fully funding them. One daughter is out of the home, the other daughter is still in the home, but they're funding those IRAs, those Roth IRAs. And again, think about that. Think about that $1,000 a month to start and $100 a month over 30 years, $319,000. That's a lot of money. And $1,000 growing to $42 million, not adding anything to it. Think of what that account would be if that person added $100 a month. So when you apply the magic of compounding to early contributions and systematic contributions to any kind of an account, the results are enormous, enormous. And $42 million sounds like a lot, but for your 25-year-old going to retire in 40 years, it's not a lot. They're going to need a lot. Maybe not 42 million, but they're going to need a lot of money. Other questions? All right. Next week, we are going to talk about leaving a legacy. So we will see you then. Thank you.